Welcome to Daily English Stories. Every story hides a world. Some inspire, some haunt, some stay forever. Chapter 1. The Boy Who Asked. Why Thomas Alva Edison was born on a cold February morning in 1847 in the small town of Milan, Ohio. He was the youngest of 7 children, a boy who saw the world not as it was, but as it could be. From the very beginning, Thomas was different. While other children played without a care, he was the one who asked the questions that no one could answer. "Why does the sun shine?" he would ask, squinting up at the sky. "Why do birds fly, but we cannot? How does the clock know the time?" His endless curiosity filled his tiny world with wonder, but not everyone saw it that way. At school, Thomas's questions were not welcomed. His teacher found his curiosity annoying, his constant thinking a distraction. One day, in frustration, the teacher told young Thomas that he was addled, that he could not learn like the other children. Those words might have broken another child's spirit, but they didn't break Thomas, because at home there was someone who believed in him. His mother, Nancy Edison, saw what others could not. She saw not a slow learner, but a boy with a spark, a mind that worked differently, beautifully. When the school turned him away, she made a decision that changed the course of history. She pulled him out of school and taught him herself. In their little home, Nancy turned one small room into a classroom. She filled it with books and love, teaching her son not what to think, but how to think. "Thomas," she told him one day, "you are not slow. You are gifted. You see the world in ways others cannot, and one day the world will see it too." Those words became the flame that lit his young heart. Years later, Edison would say, "My mother was the making of me. She was so true, so sure of me. I felt I had someone I must not disappoint." But the most touching part of his childhood came years later. Long after his mother had passed, Edison discovered an old letter from his school. The letter said, "Your son is mentally ill and unfit for school. We cannot allow him to attend anymore." Tears filled his eyes. He realized then that his mother had lied to him all those years ago. She had told him the school said he was too brilliant for their teachers to handle. That small lie had given him a lifetime of belief. It had turned doubt into destiny. At home, Thomas built his first laboratory in the basement. It was messy, noisy, and often smelled of strange chemicals. His experiments sometimes caused small explosions, filling the house with smoke, much to his mother's surprise, but she never stopped him. Instead, she smiled and said, "Every great mind makes a little mess." By the age of 10, he was already lost in his world of science. Bottles, wires, powders, and curiosity filled his little lab. He wasn't just learning, he was discovering. And that discovery became his favorite teacher. While other children memorized lessons, Edison was busy creating his own. He learned that answers were not always found in books. Sometimes they were hiding in mistakes. That boy who once sat alone at the back of the classroom, rejected and misunderstood, had already begun the journey that would one day light up the entire world. Thomas Edison didn't just ask why. He dared to find out. And in that daring, the boy who asked why became the man who would teach the world how. Chapter 2. 1,000 Failures and One Light. Thomas Edison's life after childhood was not a smooth road to success. It was a long, winding path filled with failures, struggles, and sleepless nights. But behind every failure, there was one constant truth. He never gave up. As a young man, Edison had very little money and almost no formal education. To support himself, he sold newspapers and candies on trains, carrying with him not only goods, but also his endless curiosity. In one of those train cars, he built a tiny laboratory where he continued his experiments between stops. But one day, one of his chemical experiments went terribly wrong and caused a small fire. The furious conductor threw him off the train and destroyed his lab. Most people would have been discouraged. Edison wasn't. He saw the accident not as the end of his experiments, but as a new beginning. Even as he grew older, hardship followed him. During his early years as an inventor, Edison's first major project, an electric vote recorder, completely failed. He had spent months designing it, believing it would revolutionize elections. But when he presented it to politicians, they refused to use it. They didn't want faster voting. They wanted time to change votes. Edison was heartbroken, but not defeated. That day, he learned one of the most important lessons of his life. Never invent something that people don't need. From that moment on, Edison began observing people closely. He searched for problems that affected everyone and dreamed of creating solutions that would change the world. But dreams are never easy. There were days when he couldn't afford food or rent, nights when he worked until dawn, surrounded by broken wires and burnt glass. Yet even in those darkest hours, his heart kept whispering one sentence, just one more try. Then came a turning point. Edison improved a machine called the stock ticker, a device used in the financial markets. This invention earned him $40,000, a huge fortune for that time. But more than the money, it gave him something priceless, a place where his imagination could live and grow. He built his first laboratory in Menlo Park, New Jersey, and called it the Invention Factory. At Menlo Park, Edison and his team worked day and night. The building never slept. Light glowed through the windows even at midnight as dozens of experiments continued. Edison often said, "Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration." He lived by that rule. Among all his dreams, one idea obsessed him, creating a safe, reliable, and affordable electric light bulb. The world at that time depended on candles and gas lamps. Edison wanted to replace that with something cleaner and brighter, a light that every home could have. But the journey was brutal. He and his team tested thousands of materials for the bulb's filament: cotton, bamboo, hair, paper, and even the fibers from a palm tree. Each time, the bulb either burned too quickly or refused to glow at all. His workers grew tired. Some left. Others said it was impossible. But Edison refused to listen. When asked about his countless failures, he smiled and said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He didn't see failure as the opposite of success. He saw it as a part of it. Every wrong answer brought him closer to the right one. Every burnt wire carried a new idea. Every sleepless night brought him one step closer to dawn. And then, after years of trial and heartbreak, it finally happened. In 1879, after one more experiment, one more try, the light bulb glowed steadily for 13.5 hours. The room filled with a golden glow that felt almost unreal. Edison stared at it in silence, his tired eyes reflecting the warm light. The world had changed forever, but for Edison, this was not the end. It was just the beginning. He wanted not just to invent light, but to share it with everyone. So he built the world's first electric power station in New York City in 1882. When it was switched on, homes and streets lit up for the first time. People stepped outside and watched the city glow, whispering his name in awe. From poverty to brilliance, from ridicule to glory, Edison's story proved one thing: genius is not about being smart. It's about not quitting when everything goes dark. He once said, "Our greatest weakness lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." And that was his secret. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb in one night. He invented it through years of faith, courage, and persistence. The boy who once asked why had now given the world its most beautiful answer: light. Chapter 3. The Light That Never Fades. When the name Thomas Edison is spoken, it glows brighter than the light he created. But behind that glow lies a lifetime of struggle, sacrifice, and unshakable faith. The world remembers him as the man who gave us light. But few remember how many times darkness tried to claim him. By the time Edison achieved global fame, he had already failed more than most men dare to try. His inventions had changed lives, yet his own life was filled with sleepless nights, debts, and endless experiments. Even when the world began to admire him, Edison never stopped working. He was driven not by fame, but by curiosity, and that same spark he carried as a boy in the small laboratory behind his home. At Menlo Park, his laboratory had become a temple of invention. It was filled with strange contraptions, wires, glass tubes, and the hum of endless energy. He called it his Invention Factory, a place where imagination was turned into reality, but the road was not smooth. There were moments when his health failed, when his workers left, and when his ideas seemed to hit dead ends. Yet Edison never gave up. One winter evening, disaster struck. A fire broke out in the laboratory, the very heart of Edison's work. Flames devoured everything: notes, machines, experiments, years of effort. The night sky turned orange as people gathered in silence, watching the empire of invention burn to ashes. Most men would have fallen to despair. But Edison stood there, watching the flames with calm eyes. When his son arrived, terrified, Edison turned to him and said softly, "Go call your mother. She'll never see a fire like this again." The next morning, instead of mourning, he began rebuilding. "I'm too old to cry," he said, "but not too old to start over." That was his true genius, not just the brilliance of his inventions, but the courage to begin again, no matter what burned down around him. Edison's resilience became legendary. He went on to invent the phonograph, motion pictures, and countless other technologies that transformed modern life. His work inspired a generation of dreamers, thinkers, and doers. He believed that failure was never final. It was simply the path to progress. Every mistake brought him closer to discovery. Every setback tested the strength of his will. In the quiet moments of his later years, Edison often reflected on the meaning of success. "Our greatest weakness," he said, "lies in giving up. The most certain way to succeed is always to try just one more time." He understood that invention was not just about machines or electricity. It was about the spirit of perseverance that powers human progress. Even when he lost his hearing completely, the silence did not stop him. He once said that his deafness helped him concentrate better. To him, obstacles were never barriers. They were opportunities in disguise. He turned his own limitations into advantages, teaching the world that the only real disability is the refusal to try. As age crept upon him, Edison still walked into his lab each morning, testing new ideas. The world outside had changed. Skyscrapers reached for the clouds, cities shone with electric light, and humanity moved faster than ever before. Yet the man who had started it all remained humble. He often reminded his assistants, "We don't know a millionth of 1% about anything." To him, learning was endless and curiosity was life itself. When Edison finally passed away, lights across America were dimmed in his honor. The world that once lived in darkness now glowed with his legacy. But even as bulbs flickered in mourning, they symbolized something eternal. The light of human determination, the fire of imagination, the power of one man's dream to illuminate the world. Thomas Alva Edison left behind more than inventions. He left behind a message that greatness is not born from comfort, but from challenge, that no matter how many times life burns your work to ashes, you can always rebuild. The true light he gave us was not trapped in glass or wire. It shines within every soul that dares to dream and refuses to quit. And so the story ends where it began, with light, a light that never fades, because it was born not from electricity, but from faith, courage, and the unstoppable will to begin again